Hi everyone, my name is Felicia O'Garrow, and today I'll be presenting strategies for stabilizing tomato prices in Nepal. Tomatoes are one of the most popular vegetables globally, ranking highly in terms of production and consumption. They're cultivated year-round due to adaptability across different regions and climates, and they are essential for food security, especially in Nepal, where they provide significant nutritional value and income for smallholder farms. Some of the challenges that can be faced with harvesting tomatoes are price fluctuations, inefficient supply chains, weather unpredictability, and shock events such as COVID-19 that can lead to income instability for farmers and increased food waste. My goal for this project was to create a reliable framework for forecasting tomato prices in Nepal, specifically for big tomatoes and small tomatoes to help reduce price volatility, improve market predictability, and to examine relationships between tomato categories and varieties. As far as my methodology, the data that I used was historical data ranging from 2013 to 2021 of vegetables and fruits in Nepal. The data set included almost 200,000 rows of data with columns that included commodity, date, unit, minimum selling price on that day, maximum selling price, and average selling price on that date. If you look to the right, this is actually the list of commodities. So there were a number of commodities. So what I wanted to do was actually drill down and figure which ones I would actually work with. And I did a good bit of that during my exploratory data analysis. During that time, I also created two new categories that I added to the data set, which were the categories category as well as the varieties category. Another thing that I did during my exploratory data analysis was identify different trends, seasonality, as well as correlations between prices. The next step in my process was actually performing principal component analysis, which helped reduce dimensionality and uncover key features. From there, I actually worked on my model selection and explored different models. Some of the forecasting models that I explored were linear regression. And I looked at linear regression because one of the things with all of these different commodities, I wanted to explore and see what relationships exist and what relationships exist as far as commodities as well as with other variables. Another model that I actually work with, well, I actually work with two time series models. One was ARIMA and then the other was SARIMA. And then to identify long run and short term adjustments for big and small tomatoes, I actually use a VECM model. Initially, I had planned to use a VAR model, but due to co-integration existing, I actually used the VECM model, which was recommended. Lastly, another model that I work with, and one of the main themes as far as me going through was my goal was to work on creating a framework that would help reduce the volatility and stabilize these process. So it was a no-brainer for me to actually use the Garch models for the big tomatoes as well as the small tomatoes to capture and forecast price volatility. Lastly, to evaluate my models, I used a train test split, which was 80/20. And then for my error metrics, I use RMSE, MAE, MSE, as well as MAPE. And that during as I mentioned, I worked on a number of different tasks. As far as my digging a little bit deeper into my exploratory data analysis, some of my findings were price trends. Big tomatoes are volatile. Small tomatoes are stable as far as the prices. And in addition to that, with my findings as far as PCA, I found the different percentages. So for my PC1, which equates to price level, was 77.3%, and for my PC2, which equates to volatility, it was 22.3%. Another thing that I actually learned during my exploratory data analysis was correlation. There's a strong positive correlation between min, max, and average prices, as well as um, as well as seasonality. That was a common trend. And one of the other findings that I had during this analysis was that COVID-19 was an issue for some of the different varieties, as well as the different categories. As I mentioned, I work with linear regression models. So, as far as this process, I had created four different types of linear regression models: a category, an interaction, a variety, and combined model. The combined model actually performed the best with the RMSE of 16.76 and MAP of 35.03. Some of the key insights I was able to retrieve as far as with my findings were that date, category, variety, and volatility significant, significantly affected prices. The next model that I explored was time series models. And from there, actually, before I went to actually fit any of these models, I went through a period where I checked for stationarity, which actually existed, and somewhat gave me the confidence to say, okay, I can move forward with the ARIMA models. I also looked at the autocorrelation and partial autocorrelation during this time. So getting back to my time series models, with my ARIMA model, it captured the trends in seasonality really well. Prices for both types of tomatoes were increasing and exhibited seasonality. And the model actually performed pretty well. The RMSE was 14.08. The MAPE was 20.59% for both small and big tomatoes. As far as my Serema model, that it actually added the seasonality, but there was no significant improvement. In addition, with my Serema model, I was able to see that I was able to determine that tomato small demonstrates a better fit to the data. And as far as the Serema model, those metrics were the RMSE was 15.42 and the MAPE was 25.79. Another model that I worked with was actually the VECM, which initially I had performed co-integration and found out that co-integration actually existed, which confirmed the equilibrium between the different price series. So as far as this model, it actually captured the long run relationships between the big and small tomatoes. And the forecast showed proportional upward trends for both. Lastly, for my big tomatoes and my small tomatoes, I actually um, used the Garch models. The Garch models were actually the highest performing models that I actually work with. And the Garch model in particular for big tomatoes, it captured the clustering. The only issue was that it struggled with extreme shocks. As far as small tomatoes, it had a higher error due to unpredictability, but it actually performed well. So concluding everything and just further insights. As far as my best performing models, as I mentioned, the Garch for volatility forecasting, especially for the big tomatoes, performed extremely well and was the best model. The next best model was the VECM for interdependent price trends. Key takeaways as far as my experience and what I learned was that price volatility was a major trend as I looked through, especially for the big tomatoes. And there were a number of other different trends as far as seasonality and as far as seasonality with just in general. As far as the advanced models, I noticed that they outperform the traditional methods and which gives me the confidence to say that I actually built a framework that could potentially help farmers plan as far as their production and policymakers give them the ability to stabilize the prices and address some of the inefficiencies. And that was pretty much the work that I did. Thank you so much for your time. And that's all. Thank you.